The background and development story of what eventually became the Eurofighter Typhoon is, I would argue, the most convoluted, multi-decade drama in aviation history, full of political maneuverings, budget cuts, changing requirements, election scandals, changing design partners, and many, many delays resulting from all of that nonsense. As such, I'm going to have to give you a really condensed historical context for this jet, just so that this part of the vid isn't an hour long. Forgive me if I don't mention a particular bit of trivia that you're aware of. The basic story begins in the late 1970s and early 1980s, as many countries in Europe were starting new projects to develop a next-generation air superiority fighter. This culminated in Germany, France, and the UK signing the European Combat Aircraft Program. But in the end, the European Combat Aircraft Program got cancelled as the partners couldn't agree on fundamental details of the project. Spain and Italy then joined the project, now under the name Future European Fighter Aircraft, which expanded to include BVR air combat capabilities. France insisted that the jet be carrier-capable, which caused the UK, Italy, and Germany to quit and start a brand new partnership. This new jet was primarily designed by BAE, and one technology demonstrator was built under the name EAP, for Experimental Aircraft Program. Very original. This prototype first flew in late 1986. It was agreed to use this as the base for the new fighter, now called the Eurofighter, and over the next few years the initial production contracts were worked out between the partners. After German reunification, their commitment to the program caused a political scandal in Germany, and the development slowed a bit, with the first regular production prototype only flying in 1994. The plane went on to be produced in 3 tranches, with a 4th planned, and finally started entering service in 2003. It currently flies for 9 different countries. The Eurofighter was originally intended primarily as an air superiority fighter, but additional air-to-ground capability has been added over time, and advanced versions of this plane are expected to remain in service for at least another 40 years. What we get in War Thunder are 3 versions of the Eurofighter, in the German, UK, and Italian tech trees respectively. They're almost identical, but I'll mention the differences as I go. These jets are fighters in rank 8 at battle rating 14.0 for air and 12.7 for ground. The jet gets a fully featured ballistics computer and a radar warning receiver that tracks into the K-band. The UK model also gets a laser warning receiver. The UK and Italian models get an additional integrated optical targeting unit with a 95x zoom. The radar is the Captor M. This is a top-tier I-band radar set that features all the advanced radar modes, has excellent range, good targeting, and 6 data link channels, but a few issues. The UK and Italian versions also get an infrared search and track unit. For loadouts, all 3 get a good supply of air-to-air missiles, drop tanks, and options for various air-to-ground ordnance, along with the Lightning III targeting pod. For infrared missiles, you get the AIM-9L and then upgrade to the 9M. The German model gets the 9LI instead of the 9M. These are the same all-aspect heat seekers that you've been using up to this point in the various tech trees, with the 9LI and 9M featuring infrared countermeasures, and the M being basically smokeless. Your radar missile is the AIM-120B. This is a high-performance active radar homing missile with data link and inertial guidance. As of making this review, it's one of the best missiles in the game, and it's going to provide the vast majority of your air combat kills. For air-to-ground weapons, you get a few different options for laser-guided bombs. The Paveway 4s and GBU-54s get inertial guidance and can also operate in satellite guidance mode like a JDAM, but they have smaller warheads. You also get the Brimstone operating in semi-active laser mode. This is a very long-range anti-tank missile with a strong warhead that'll one-shot almost anything you can get a good hit on. Oh, and you can take 18 of these things. In terms of its flight performance, the Eurofighter is simply amazing. The acceleration is great, and it can actually gain speed in a 75-degree vertical climb. It can punch past Mach 1.3 at lower levels, and best of all, it can supercruise. The excessive speed of this jet is something that you're going to have to adjust to, since it's really easy to just be flying along and not even notice that you're pushing past Mach 1.2 when you need to go try and turn or something. Now, the agility on the Eurofighter is similarly impressive. Your pilot's G-tolerance and stamina will be the only things holding you back in a dogfight, and if you want to get serious with close combat, you're really going to need a fully aced pilot with this one. The footage in this review was recorded with maxed out pilots in all 3 versions of the plane, and you can see I still blacked out and lost control all the time, especially since it's incredibly easy to snap into some insane 13G turn without even realizing it. This extreme level of agility and the incredible engine power makes this jet an absolute S-tier dogfighter, and if you're lucky enough to actually get a one-on-one with this thing, enjoy it while it lasts. Taking one of the Eurofighters out in air battles is a chance for some seriously peak air combat, but there's an issue. Remember how I mentioned that the radar set has some problems? Its tracking out past about 30 kilometers feels kind of a generation behind where it should be. Plus, the track while scan seems to fall off a lot easier, and it picks up missiles in flight more often than other Rank 8 radars. Now, don't get me wrong, this is still a top-end radar set with good features and good modes. It's just that it doesn't really feel like it's performing as well as it should be on a fully modern jet like this. Another thing to mention is that the supply of countermeasures is absolutely enormous. Don't hesitate to dump chaff and flares all over the place anytime an enemy plane is even marginally in range. You've got tons to spare. In terms of your mission flight profiles and stuff, basically anything goes. You can climb quickly to do high altitude combat, or do the usual low-level push. Now, something to think about, this jet is so damn fast, you can actually outflank enemy flank moves on a lot of maps, and this is the first new jet they've added in quite a while that actually adds new options to an air-RB match opening push. Now, if you fly this out as close air support, I'm going to give you a big tip. Fire off a couple of brimstones in the general direction of the red side of the map immediately after spawning in. Just target some random point on the ground and let them fly. Then turn off for your side climb. After you've positioned for the climb, switch back into the targeting pod view and find something for your brimstones to attack. They're already in flight and they're laser guided, so you can retarget them pretty easily. This opening move ends up being a fairly safe way to attack Pansirs or other SPAA. Oh, and don't forget that the radar warning receiver tracks into the K-band, so you're gonna detect ground threats that some other jets are gonna be blind to. I like to fire the brimstones in pairs, just in case one gets shot down or something, and since you get so many of the damn things, it's not like you're really missing out. Visually, as of making this vid, all 3 Eurofighters only have one default paint job each. It's still a really badass looking jet, but hopefully they add some more skins over time. Oh, and there are unfortunately some visual oddities on the 3D model. For example, on a couple of them, the gun port for the cannon doesn't actually open. Whoops. But in general, it's still a cool plane to have up on the screen. Now, despite being such a fast jet, landing is actually really easy thanks to its agility and its high engine thrust. You can drop gear at well over 600 kilometers an hour, and landing flaps up a bit over 350, plus it gets a drag chute. The cockpit has great visibility in every direction except straight backwards. It's got a great heads-up display, 3 large MFDs, and useful info overlaid on the helmet-mounted sight. A+ for VR flying, no notes on the cockpit here. to close out on 3 versions of the Eurofighter 2000. This jet has absolutely insane flight performance. Its air-to-ground weapon load can get really absurd. It carries a generous supply of missiles and countermeasures. Its dogfight agility is top shelf. And it can supercruise. However, the radar set feels like it has some shortcomings. Its medium-speed energy retention in sustained high AOA turns isn't the best, and the 3D model has a couple of small errors. The final verdict on the Eurofighter is that this is the first jet I've flown in a long time that genuinely feels overpowered on day one. Its flaws are minor, and probably gonna get fixed eventually, leaving you with an absolutely amazing aircraft. It's worth the grind in all 3 tech trees, and it'll probably be competitive in the meta for a very long time. As always, thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, check out this other one.